With the midterm elections approaching, let's turn to our County to County series, highlighting key counties and voter issues. This morning, a look at the problems Democrats are having in rural America. NBC News correspondent Antonia Hylton traveled to Anson County, North Carolina. It's a rural area where many voters, especially young black men, have lost faith in the political system. Antonia, good to have you with us. You know, I think many voters may think of rural America as white America. Obviously, that's not always the case. What did you see when you spent time in Anson County?
That's right, Joe. Rural America is really so much more diverse than people typically think. And in fact, in a state like North Carolina, many of the rural counties are actually majority minority. And that's the case in Anson County, North Carolina, which is down closer to the border of South Carolina. This is a community that is really rich, beautiful, agricultural. And people there, you know, it's the kind of town where everyone knows each other, grew up around each other's kids, and they kind of pitch out and step up to the plate and help their kids and neighbors. But for years now, people in Anson have been saying that the people who lead them in the state and at the national level have not paid attention to their rural concerns, don't campaign where they are, and they just simply feel like they're not heard. So we spent some time with a group called the New Rural Project down there. They go door to door, and they're really trying to get people civically engaged. They're nonpartisan, and they just want to have conversations and listen. Take a listen to some of the work that they've done on the ground.
It may sound like a simple act, but for black residents in rural Anson County, North Carolina, this kind of visit from a civic group is rare.
Violence, poverty, just things that can be improved.
You know, in Anson County, those young men, black men under 40, turned out at 35% in the 2020 general election. And so actually having a chance to have conversation with them, and the fact that they really seem to feel, you know, kind of validated to be heard.
The group's argument is essentially that having these door-to-door conversations and giving people the chance to just feel heard and to say what they'd like to see reflected back to them in their community is the first key step in getting already registered voters re-engaged with the system and feeling trusting of their community leaders again, Joe.
Antonia, I want to ask you about a key number. When President Biden won the White House, he did it by winning just 10% of the country's rural counties. The people you spoke with, do they feel like the Democratic Party is listening to them?
Frankly, no, for the most part. And it's actually not just about the Democratic Party. It is about the entire political establishment. They feel that cycle after cycle, people, you know, occasionally come through or speak to rural America at events. But then when they're actually in office, whether that's in the state in North Carolina or in D.C., they feel like they never see the results. That was a consistent theme in the conversations that we've had, that many of the people in Anson who've lived there all their lives can go, you know, back decades when it comes to the requests, to the changes that they've wanted to see in their community. And what it's led to is black voters there, many of them young, feeling like they've seen their mother, their grandmother ask for things, fight for things that haven't materialized yet. And they've started to lose faith. And so as you just heard Cynthia Wallace say right there in my interview, right, that the fact that people, black men under 40, are in that area of the state voting at about 35 to 40%, you know, that should be a crisis point. But it also should signal to politicians that there are a lot of potential voters, supporters in these areas that they could go after, and they're simply just not paying attention to. Take a listen to one of the conversations I had with a voter down there. Has Biden and generally the Democratic Party, have they fulfilled promises that they've made over the last couple of years?
To me, in a small town like this, it really doesn't matter who you have in office. The effect that we experience is the same. It don't matter if it's Biden, it don't matter if it's Trump, it don't matter if it's Obama or Clinton or Bush. It really doesn't matter. What we feel down here is exactly the same. You know, they can never even tell us who the president is, and we really still going to be exactly the same. You know what I mean?
I was so struck, Joe, by that conversation, the idea that a community could feel like it doesn't even matter who the president is, everything would just ultimately be the same. I think that's really an alarm bell. And Michael Covington, who you just met there, is actually a voter. He tries to hold on to optimism, and he still shows up. But he finds it's really hard to convince young people coming up after him to do the same.
Antonia, fascinating interviews, and you can see more of her reporting on Meet the Press Reports tonight, how Democrats lost rural America at 10:30 p.m. Eastern here on NBC News Now, and then available on demand on Peacock tomorrow morning.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.